This is Mission Control Houston. This is a view from a camera mounted in the payload bay of Shuttle Discovery as it orbits over Mongolia. Discovery's crew is about 57 minutes away from their wake-up call. Spacecraft communicator Shannon Lucid will be sending up that wake-up call here in a little less than an hour. And it will begin Discovery's day, which will be a very busy day. We'll see the approach and docking with the International Space Station, and the hatch opening will take place a couple of hours after that docking takes place, and then the crews will get busy transferring the spacesuits and other tools that are needed for the first spacewalk of the mission, which will be conducted by Mike Fossum and Ron Guerin. That spacewalk is due to take place on Tuesday. Before it docks with the International Space Station, the shuttle will also perform what's called the rendezvous pitch maneuver. This is the backflip that the shuttle does from a distance of about 600 feet away from the station. The shuttle flips end on end, allowing the crew of the International Space Station to use high-powered cameras to take photographs. Those photographs of the underside of the shuttle's heat shield, as well as the wings leading edges and the nose cap, are then downlinked to engineers and the ground controllers here in Houston. They take a close look at those photographs to ensure that Discovery's heat shield is in good shape and intact. Earlier yesterday, the crew of Discovery performed a quick inspection of the shuttle's heat shield using the camera on the end of the shuttle's robotic arm. This is typically done using the shuttle's orbiter boom sensor system, but since Discovery did not take one up with it due to the size of Kibo, the shuttle's crew used what they could on the end of the robotic arm, and ground controller saw nothing of consequence from the images that were downlinked earlier yesterday. So the shuttle and its crew are in good shape. All systems are performing normally. The controllers here in the Mission Control Center are not working any major issues, and everything is ready to go for today's docking with the International Space Station. Kibo, in the meantime, the 32,000-pound laboratory, is sitting inside Discovery's payload bay at this moment, awaiting the final leg of its journey that began more than 23 years ago. And after more than 10,000 miles from Japan to the Kennedy Space Center and the ride into orbit, Kibo is on the last leg of its trip to its permanent home, where it will be attached to the Harmony node directly across from the Columbus module. In this view from the camera on board Shuttle Discovery, you see the very tip of the elbow joint of the shuttle's robotic arm. The shuttle's robotic arm, as well as the station's robotic arm and the robotic arm that is attached to the Kibo module, all three will be in work during this mission. Astronaut Karen Nyberg will become the first astronaut to operate all three robotic arms while in space. The shuttle's robotic arm is currently in a stowed position in preparation for the shuttle's docking with the International Space Station. The station's robotic arm will not only be used to hand off the orbiter boom sensor system to the shuttle's robotic arm, but the station's robotic arm will also be the main tool that is used to put Kibo into its final place on the side of the Harmony module on the International Space Station. Both the Discovery and the International Space Station are about to cross over from day into night. They are circling the Earth in an orbit that is tilted 51.6 degrees to the equator. They see a sunrise and sunset every 45 minutes and are able to circle the Earth every 90 minutes. Right now the altitude of both vehicles is about 209 statute miles above the surface of the Earth. Even though both vehicles are traveling 17,500 miles per hour during the docking that will take place later on today, the last few seconds of the docking will take place at a very slow rate as Commander Kelly fine-tunes his approach to the International Space Station during the last few seconds of that maneuver. Once Discovery docks with the International Space Station, it will take about 2 hours to perform a series of leak checks and other items and procedures on both sides of the hatch, and then the hatches will be opened and the crews will be able to greet each other and have a brief welcoming ceremony. After that, Commander Sergei Volkov, who is the commander of Expedition 17, will give the crew of Discovery a quick safety overview and other briefings as they enter into the newly expanded International Space Station for the first time. We want to remind you that if you would like more information about Discovery's mission to the International Space Station, as well as background and biography information on each of the crew members of Discovery's crew and that of Expedition 17, we invite you to visit our website at www.nasa.gov. You can get the latest information on Discovery's mission, as well as the latest information on NASA's Phoenix Mars lander. That lander actually reached out and touched the Martian soil for the first time this past weekend, and you can see pictures of that, as well as the information on Discovery's mission. Even though Discovery's crew has another 45 minutes of sleep to go, the ground controllers here in Mission Control are commanding the cameras inside the payload bay of the orbiter to turn and pan and tilt to prepare them to be in the proper configuration for Discovery's docking later on today. In this view, you see the Cubo laboratory still resting peacefully inside Discovery's payload bay. You also see the laboratory's own robotic arm on the left-hand side still tucked away against the laboratory, as well as the shuttle's robotic arm on the right-hand side in its temporary stowage position. You get a good sense of the size of Cubo as it sits inside the payload bay whenever you realize that the shuttle's robotic arm is about 50 feet long. Cubo is about 30 feet long and about a little more than 14 feet wide. If you look very closely at the end of the Cubo laboratory, you'll see kind of sort of back behind the robotic arm two small white discs. Those are actually window coverings that the astronauts will remove once Cubo is installed. Those two windows will give the expedition crew members a view of the external payloads that will ultimately be added to the Cubo laboratory. That robotic arm on the outside of Cubo will be used to access those experiments and to move them around. The final part of that external payload for Cubo will be delivered on STS-127.